All right, everybody, let's get started. Hi, welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences Sustainability Networking Luncheon. Thanks for being here on this most special of days. My name is Chris. I am curator for the SECU Daily Planet Theater at the museum in beautiful downtown Raleigh, which is normally, it's this part of the building right here. The giant globe is where you can find me when we're at the museum. Right now, you can find me, well, sitting in front of a picture of the museum. I'm so glad that you're all here with us for our very special program. Today is Earth Day. What better day to talk about sustainability and how to be sustainable at home, especially in a time, events being as they are, when we are pretty much all at home, right? How can we continue to be sustainable? How can we continue to think about the planet, care for Earth, and at the same time, right, make our lives better? I'm so glad that you're here. I hope that you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching at any point throughout the show, you have questions, comments, you can post those in the YouTube chat. They're on the side. We'll be monitoring those. And after our guest speakers deliver their presentations, we'll grab questions from the chat and pose to them and get answers, learn something new. So let me introduce today's very special guests from the City of Raleigh. First up, we have Nicole Goddard. Nicole is a sustainability analyst with expertise in home energy use. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Next up is Amanda Astor, Community Relations Specialist, who specializes in waste, recycling, and composting. Hi, Amanda.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And then Amy Farinelli is a stormwater engineer with expertise in stormwater. Hi, Amy.
Hey, Chris.
So I'm excited to learn from the three of you, learn more about being sustainable at home, the challenges, the opportunities, and the sorts of steps and actions that anybody can take wherever they're at. So thanks to the three of you in the City of Raleigh for helping us put this on. And Nicole, I think I'll turn the stage over to you.
Thanks so much. Happy Earth Day, everybody. We're really excited to be here. And especially today, it's a great opportunity for us. I wanted to get started with a quote. Actually, let's start with a little information about me. I'm originally from New England, so this Raleigh climate's a little new for me. But I started with the city in 2018, and I work in the Office of Sustainability, and our office is responsible for the city's climate action planning process right now. And my friend Amy decided we should all start with a little joke. So my favorite joke is, why do you never see elephants hiding in trees?
Wait, why do you never see elephants hiding in trees? I don't know.
Because they are great at it. So
yeah,
I wanted to share that. I never said that they were good jokes, and you never said I was an expert in joke telling.
That's great. I love it.
So we wanted to kind of frame up our presentation today, talking about some small things that people can do in their homes that can help broaden the sustainability of their homes and also help make larger contributions to environmentalism in the city of Raleigh and beyond. And one thing that captures it really well is this quote from Vincent van Gogh, which is that great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. And great things are not something accidental, but must certainly be willed. So to me, this is a great way to think about environmentalism more broadly, is that all of us can do our part and do our little things to help make bigger impacts. So when we talk about small things, right now we are in a time where that we have some unique sustainability challenges. We're all safe at home right now, but that means that we're using all of our water and our energy in our homes. So you may see your monthly costs go up. But we're also possibly using more single-use plastics in order to stay safe and reduce transmission of the virus. Additionally, and I've heard a lot of people say this, it's a really overwhelming time for people right now. There's a lot to think about. And just because we're experiencing a public health crisis doesn't mean our climate crisis goes away. But thinking about all of that can seem really challenging. But we do have some unique opportunities at this moment in history. We have a special time where we have more time to learn and plan and do projects, to change our behavior, to develop good habits. And we have an opportunity to get everybody in the family involved. So we want to focus on 3 areas: saving energy, reducing waste, and making stormwater improvements to your property. And we're going to try and give you some suggestions today that you can do for little to no cost and with little to no equipment. And the result of these, if you're implementing them, you can save money, you can increase the resilience of your home, and you can reduce greenhouse gas emissions throughout our community. So I'm going to talk about saving energy at home. My colleague Amanda will talk about waste reduction, and Amy will talk about stormwater improvements. So going back to that great things problem, in May 2019, the City of Raleigh, the City Council set our first community-wide climate action goal, and that goal is an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. So it's a big goal. And one of the first things we based this on was how we're producing emissions now. So this is every community's pie is going to look a little bit different. And in Raleigh, this is how we produce our emissions: transportation, cars and trucks, energy in our buildings, so that's commercial, residential, and industrial buildings, and then waste. So since we're all driving a lot less right now, we're going to focus today on energy in our homes, and then Amanda will talk about waste. So broadly, how we use energy in our homes are to keep ourselves comfortable, to keep ourselves clean and fed, to keep ourselves entertained, and to keep the lights on. And so I want to try and give some tips across all of these 4 categories of how we use energy in order to help you save money, but also to help reduce the emissions from energy use. So starting off with heating and cooling. The thermostat is your friend. The Department of Energy estimates that for each degree of thermostat adjustment for 8 hours every day, you can save 1% on your energy bill. So that means while you're sleeping or while you're away from your home, setting your thermostat back, by changing the thermostat settings by 7 to 10 degrees can save you up to 10% per month on your energy bill. Additionally, if that's not something that you want to try because it's not comfortable, you can change your base setting on your thermostat. So going from 72 degrees regular setting to 75 degrees regular setting might not change your perception of comfort very much, but it can add up to some savings in your bill. If you use a ceiling fan, you can raise the thermostat setting by about 4 degrees and not experience any change in your comfort level. So right now we've got great weather. So I've got my windows open. I'm not using my AC at all. I get a little bit of pollen in the house, but I can take care of that for free with a damp sponge. On hot and sunny days, though, I like to keep the blinds and the curtains closed because that reduces the amount of heat and light that comes into my house that my AC then has to respond to. Additionally, cleaning and replacing your filters regularly is important to keep your pumps and fans working at their most efficient. The filter's job is to keep dust and other particles out of the air, but as the filter gets dirty, that prevents airflow from going through, making the fans and pumps have to work harder. So keeping those running their most efficient means keeping them clean and doing regular maintenance. Finally, a very simple one is moving heat-producing appliances away from the thermostat. So that way your thermostat's reacting to the ambient temperature in the room and not the heat that's coming off of your computer, your television, or what might be right underneath it. When it comes to appliances, we can make sure that we're asking them to do their most efficient work, or we can reduce how much we're using them altogether. So right now, since we're all home, maybe you have the time to let things dry outside instead of putting them in the dryer. Keeping refrigerators and freezers full allows them to cool most efficiently because they're not cooling a lot of empty space. You don't want to overfill them because that causes some other issues. Similarly, running your clothes washer, your dishwasher only when you have a full load allows you to get the most out of the energy that you're putting into that Keeping your oven door shut while you cook is a big one. A friend of mine said to me this morning, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. So every time you open that oven door, you lose heat. And if the door is left open just 30 seconds, you can lose 150 degrees of heat from your oven, which a lot of people are baking right now. It's really not great to bake in uneven heat. And your oven has to work extra hard to get back up to temperature after you close the door. Washing your clothes in hot water and similarly using an air dry setting on your dishwasher instead of a heat dry saves some energy to run those appliances as well. For electronics and lights, I'm pretty sure everybody heard from their parent growing up, shut off the lights when you're not in the room. It is just as good advice now as it was back then. If you're not using it, you don't need it on. Unplugging electronics when you're not in use is an interesting one because electronics can draw power even when they're not turned on. So if it's something that doesn't need to be plugged in, unplugging it doesn't allow it to be a vampire drain on your energy bill. Additionally, and this was one that I'm really guilty of, don't charge your phone overnight. Most phones only take 3 or 4 hours to reach a full charge. And so charging it overnight is running power into it for an additional 3 or 4 hours that doesn't need to go in there. So if you can charge it up before you go to bed and unplug it, you can still wake up with that nice full battery feeling in the morning without using extra energy. And finally, I know we said we weren't going to ask you to spend money, but if you do need to replace light bulbs during this time, buying LED light bulbs instead of compact fluorescents or incandescent bulbs can save you money in the long term. These bulbs use less energy, produce less heat, but last about 5 times longer than a CFL and 50 times longer than an incandescent bulb. So they'll keep being efficient for a longer period of time and save money in the long run. So how do you get this done? So every month, your energy company sends you a lot of information in the mail, along with a request for money. But if you focus on the information, you can find some ways to reduce the amount of money that they're asking you for. So take a look at the total kilowatt hours on your bill and take a look at your month-to-month usage, which is that little bar graph down there. So if you're looking at trying to reduce your energy, probably what's going to happen between April and May this year is going to get a lot warmer. You're going to be running your AC a little bit more, and your energy is going to go up regardless. So comparing your April to May bills may not be the best use of that data, but comparing last May to this May might give you a better sense of how much you're able to reduce that energy over time. Set a goal. You can, we've talked today, and there's simple ways to reduce your energy use by 10% per month. So try and implement those. Set a goal for 10% or 5% and track your usage over time and get everybody involved. My nephew loves to tell me what to do. So if I tell him it's his job to tell me to turn off the lights, he's going to tell me to turn off the lights. So bring everybody into the process, set good habits for the entire family, and try and learn how to reduce your energy use together. So what else can you do? Once we're more back to normal, there are a lot of other things you can do to improve energy use in your home. Duke Energy and other energy utilities, if you're not in our area, will provide a free of charge home energy audit, and they'll give you resources and information about how to do weatherization projects and other projects to reduce your energy use. Purchasing energy efficient appliances is another good way to do it. The energy labeling rule requires manufacturers of certain appliances to provide information on how much energy appliances use. And you can see how much that will cost to run in a year. And that's something you can factor into a purchasing decision. If you're looking at things that may cost 2 different amounts of money, but one might be more efficient, you could end up saving money in the longer run. Smart thermostats. So currently I have a dumb thermostat, so I've got to change it manually every time. But now you have a smart thermostat, it can hook up to your phone. So if you find you're going to be out of your house for 5 more hours, you can change your low energy setting and actually save energy in a longer period of time from your phone. And then if you really are serious and want to do some renewable energy installation on your home, there are companies and organizations all over the country that will help you do it and do the installation for you. And finally, I wanted to mention a few resources for people who may need some assistance with energy improvements. Utility companies have them. The state of North Carolina has a weatherization assistance program. Wake County and the City of Raleigh also have programs for low-income families to help you make investments in your home to reduce your energy use. And so check with your local municipality and your local county to see what opportunities they might have, because we really don't want someone's income to be a barrier to helping them save money on energy use, but also to helping us as a community reduce our energy use altogether, reduce our carbon emissions, and reaching our greenhouse gas emissions goals. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Amanda to talk about waste.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. You guys all ready to talk some trash now and recycling and composting? All right. So let's see. Let's dive on in. Sorry, a little patience with me. I'm kind of new to Zoom here. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about recycling and composting, ways that you guys can help us as a city reduce waste during this time where everyone's at home and generating more waste. So a little bit about me. I was born in New York, moved down here when I was really young, so I consider myself a North Carolinian. I have a BA in environmental sustainability from Meredith College, and I also have a communication minor from there as well. I've been with the City of Raleigh in the Solid Waste Services Department since 2016, and my role with the department is outreach and education all about recycling. So tours and presentations about our recycling program. And of course, to keep up with the theme for Amy, we all have our favorite jokes. So mine is, how do you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
Okay, I know the natural history answer to this question.
And I appreciate that.
I'd better, right?
Right.
My coworkers are watching the stream. But I'm curious what you think the difference is.
Well, the difference is one you see later and one you see in a while. But
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'll stick to my day job of recycling. So when we're looking at the waste stream here, Wake County, City of Raleigh, wherever you guys might be, typically your bin is 39% compostable material, which means mainly food waste, about 29% garbage, and then what we want to focus on today is our recyclables. And those recyclables make up about 32% of the waste stream coming out of your home. So when it comes to recycling, of course, there are so many reasons why we want to recycle. We all know that it saves energy, it reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, it reduces pollution, which keeps Raleigh looking great. A big thing is it saves a lot of landfill space. So the City of Raleigh, we're not the only local municipality using Wake County's landfill, so we have to be mindful of how much space we're using as a city. And it avoids really expensive disposal costs. And a good thing for a lot of us is it provides jobs. So our department, there's about 300 of us alone in the solid waste department. Great majority of them is on the operations side. So the people that you see out on the trucks making those collections, all the way to the sorting end of it. And then also companies that are using that recycled material to make new products. So across the board, it provides a lot of jobs around the area. So the main thing, we know recycling is important. It has a lot of great benefits, but what do we want to see in that bin? So your recycling basics, it's broken down 4 main categories for recycling to try and make it as easy as possible. And those main categories for us here and across a lot of the local towns and cities, we want plastic, whether that's a plastic bottle, a jug, a tub, or even a plastic jar. We want to see those plastic materials in there. We want your metal soda cans, your soup cans, vegetable cans, glass bottles and jars, and then paper, cartons, and cardboard. So those big category items, those are what we want to see in the carts. So yes, it's very important to know what we want to recycle. But strangely enough, it is crucial to know what we don't want. So our big focus is actually on contamination, which is what we like to call the know your no's. So things that we do not want to see in that cart is just as important to know as what we want in that cart. So we're going to cover things that we want. So these graphics will help. So of course, those big 4 categories that we discussed, your plastics, metals, glass, paper, while there are so many good materials made out of that we want, you'll notice that there's a lot of materials made out of those items that we can't accept. Things like The dreaded straws and your plastic cups and that sort of thing we can accept in our program. Things like scrap metal. If it's not really a can, a beverage can or a food can, we don't really want that in our program. Yes, there are other resources around to recycle your scrap metal, but we just do not want to see that in the curbside cart. The same thing goes for glass. So big things like window glass, mirror glass, all of those items need to stay out of the cart. Kind of a general rule of thumb for your metal and glass would be if it held food or a beverage, we want it. So your bottles and your jars and your cans we want, but large pieces of metal, large pieces of glass, it's very hard for us to handle on the sorting end of it. And then when it comes to paper, something to keep in mind, if it's larger than a Post-it note, we want it. So anything Post-it note size and up, we want. But things like shredded paper, once it gets too small to be able to sort, it becomes an issue, which kind of leads into an issue of what we call wishful recycling. So an item that we think would be recyclable, we toss it in the cart and it actually winds up as contamination. So kind of, we break this down into your top 10 takeaways, which sound like a lot. That's a lot of things to throw at someone, 10 takeaways. But you'll notice as we go through them that these takeaways are all related to each other. So the big thing, if you leave with nothing else but this, just know that your 4 main categories of recyclables would be plastic, metal, paper, and glass. So if you have items like that in your home that you're using right now, or once we get back to normal and are out again, back at work, you have these items, we want to see them in the recycling bin. If you're faced with something that you don't know, hey, is this plastic? Is this paper? If you have any doubt, throw it out. So remember that little saying, when in doubt, throw it out. If it's not something that falls easily into those 4 categories, it mainly means that it can't be recycled. So that kind of goes with it. So if you're tossing in things that don't belong in the recycling bin, it's causing a lot of extra work on the sorting end. So just remember that we're the first sorters. We control what goes into our curbside bins, what goes into our bins at work and school and out in the community. So if we're able to keep as much contamination out of those bins as possible, it's going to help out when it comes to the actual sorting process. So contamination, we know it hurts people. All of our materials here in Raleigh are hand sorted. So if we're tossing in a lot of things that don't belong, that's slowing things down. It hurts the process. And of course, it impacts price. So it makes things very expensive. It increases those disposal fees at the landfill if we're throwing out a lot of materials. It drives down the cost of these bales of material. It makes them not as, the quality is not as great anymore if there's a lot of trash mixed in. So it drives down the price of these. And I know this one's a little tricky right now since everyone's at home and we have a lot of single-use water bottles and that sort of thing coming and going. But once everything gets back to normal, we could start using reusable bottles again, bring those out with us wherever we go, and just start to make better consumer decisions, whether that's buying in bulk or having reusable items at our disposal. Other things, so I know recycling can sometimes be a little complicated, might be a little tricky or confusing, but we are trying to make it as easy as possible. So we don't want people to get lost in the details of it, to overthink recycling. Normally, if you have a good feeling that it can be recycled, it can. Again, if it doesn't fall into those 4 categories of items, the key is that it won't be a recyclable item, so we don't have to worry about those things like your straws and your plastic lids. If it's not something that looks easily recyclable, it mainly means that it isn't. Which also leads into this next one. So yes, a lot of items you'll notice have those chasing arrows on the bottom. We're always looking for that recycling symbol, but it's tricky because it doesn't always mean that you can recycle it. Sometimes they're able to put that recycling symbol on something if it's made from recycled material. So a great example of this would be next time you get something takeout, if you get a styrofoam takeout container, you'll look at the bottom of it, it's going to have that recycling symbol on it. We don't take styrofoam in our recycling program, but styrofoam is typically made from recycled materials. So they're able to put that symbol on there to show that it's made from recyclables, but we can't actually recycle it. So we don't always want to focus on that symbol because it can get a little tricky. So if we keep these things in mind, we're going to start to recycle the right way. So we're going to put all the right materials in, we're going to get quality materials. So once we start recycling right, then we're able to recycle more. So once we're comfortable with the things we want to recycle, we'll notice that residents and people in the community are going to be recycling way more because they understand what goes where, what's garbage versus what's recycling. And then also something good to keep in mind. So a MRF is just a fancy acronym for Material Recovery Facility. That's where all of your recyclable material goes. So these facilities are built for recyclables. They're not built to sort garbage. So the way we can help is to keep all of the food waste, your plastic bags, any sort of garbage item out of the recycling bin to help the sorters at that end of it, and also to help their machinery. And then kind of a key thing that we've touched on, the know your no's. So big things that we don't want, anything that's going to tangle in a machine, things like a plastic bag or food waste or styrofoam. The more that we know to keep out of the bin, the higher the quality of the things that will go into the bin. And then something else that we could do. So we know that food waste makes up the majority of our waste stream. So now that we're at home, we're cooking more, we have way more food waste. Our City of Raleigh service for yard waste has been temporarily suspended due to the circumstances that are going on with the virus. So we want to offer options for composting. So composting is a great way to take all of the food waste that you guys might have in your home, or even yard waste that you have around, leaves and branches, that sort of thing, and make your own compost piles at home. Make your own nutrient-rich soil that you can garden with now that spring is here. So composting, of course, to reduce food waste. A lot of what we have that we're throwing away is food waste. So this is a great way to have use for that food waste. Instead of just throwing it out in the trash, you could turn it into this great nutrient-rich soil. And it'll also help to fight climate change. So when Nicole touched on keeping down the greenhouse gas emissions, the City of Raleigh's goal for that, this is one small way that we could do this at home. So we know that landfills, they emit a lot of methane gas. So this will help if we're not throwing as much food waste in, as much organic materials. You can start composting at home and help to limit that methane gas that's being emitted at landfills. And then also, as just kind of a good feel-good thing for your own self, you could build healthy soils in your own community, at your own home. You could create your own soil to use in a garden, and it'll really help your plants. So we have resources on our city website. NC State is a huge resource for not only composting, but vermicomposting, which is composting with worms. So if you're interested in getting involved with that during this time at home, we highly recommend looking at those resources that are provided online. So your basic compostables, things that you guys would definitely have around the house during this time. We know everyone likes to have coffee and tea, so all of those coffee filters and tea bags can be composted. And then things like food waste, whether it's fruit, watermelons, banana peels, that sort of thing, vegetables, different kinds of peels, even eggshells can be composted as well. So if you create a backyard bin, you can toss all of that stuff in. And then a helpful trick that I've found from people that I know that have backyard bins, if you aren't going out there every day to toss stuff out, freeze your food waste. So you could store your scraps in a bag in the freezer, and then whenever you go back outside, you could just toss it in there. So it'll limit the smell and any sort of issue that could come from storing food waste in the house. And then challenges that are unique to our time right now. So of course, more people are at home. Everything is switched over to either work from home, everything's virtual. So the more we're at home, the more waste that we're generating, which unfortunately means that there's more chances for contamination. The wrong thing is going to wind up in the bin. We've seen an uptick in single-use plastics, whether that's a water bottle or a soda bottle, whatever it might be. There are definitely limited options for recycling certain items, and that the items that come to mind would be plastic bags. So typically you could bring your bags back to a place like a grocery store or Target or Walmart. But since we have limited options for that right now, solutions would be you could store them for when things go back to normal. You could bring them back to the grocery store once we get the green light, or you could reuse them around the house. You could put them in your own trash can instead of using a trash bag. But if you do want to get rid of them right now, if you don't want them around, highly recommend putting them in the garbage, keep them out of the recycling cart, just dispose of them the right way. And then also a big thing for our Raleigh residents, we have made the decision to suspend yard waste services due to the circumstances. So we're asking residents to either store your yard waste until we are able to resume collection safely. Of course, there are a lot of private haulers that are around that are able to collect it, or you could take advantage of our city's yard waste center. It is open for drop-offs currently. We are not able to give out any mulch or compost at this time, but you can drop off your yard waste, which will help. And then just kind of some fun things to do at home. So I know a lot of people are looking for activities to do as a family or with kids. So we have a ton of recycling crafts that are able to be done. And these are just a couple examples. So I know Pinterest is everyone's friend right now if you want to look up crafts, but just some things that are easy. Things like bookmarks made out of all your cereal boxes and cracker boxes. If you want to get outside and use maybe some compost that you've created, we've got planters that could be made out of bottles, the little Tin Man planters, and then just a bunch of little animal crafts that could be done with egg cartons. So if you guys are feeling creative and you want to do some reuse during this time at home, just know that there are a ton of resources for recycling fun and recycling crafts at home. So without further ado, I will turn this on over to Amy to talk about some stormwater.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. All right, so as mentioned, my name is Amy Farinelli. I work for Raleigh's Stormwater Management Division in our water quality section, and I'm excited to talk today about home sustainability and stormwater. Goes to the next slide. Just a little bit about me. I was born and raised in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. I have degrees in environmental studies and sociology. I've worked for the City of Raleigh for about 3 years now. Prior to that, I worked for a nonprofit in Southern Virginia. And while I do appreciate the credit for the joke idea, it was really just a sneaky way to show you all a picture of my cat. My favorite joke is, what do you call a pile of cats?
What do you call a pile of cats? I don't think I've ever seen a pile of cats.
Well, I hope you haven't, to be honest. But it's a meowton. So like a meowton.
Okay. I
Yep.
like that. That's good.
Thanks.
You win.
Oh, thank you. So just a little bit more background information to provide some context. So my work throughout the years has allowed me to be a part of some really cool projects and initiatives. So these are just some of the highlights. Most recently, my work has involved identifying opportunities for stormwater quality improvement projects, such as green stormwater infrastructure in Raleigh. For anyone who may not have heard of GSI before, it's a type of stormwater management that's designed to mimic nature and capture, absorb, and store runoff and provide treatment on site so that it can better protect our waterways. And in the next couple of slides, I'll talk about some GSI practices that are commonly used on residential properties. As for challenges, the challenges that stormwater is facing right now during this stay-at-home time are not necessarily unfamiliar ones, but some of them are a little bit heightened, and that's preventing pollution from getting into our streams. So one of our biggest concerns right now is actually sanitary sewer overflows due to a buildup of materials causing blockages in sewer system pipes and things like that. That can result in spills that can contaminate nearby waterways. Two of the major causes of those blockages, especially right now, are wipes. So people are using a lot more wipes right now to clean and disinfect their homes, which is very important, but just make sure to never flush those down your toilet. There are a lot of wipes that claim to be flushable. They are not, and they will cause problems. Another one is cooking grease. So people are cooking a lot more at home again, and just make sure you don't dump that down the sink, as tempting as it may be while you're washing your dishes. Instead, you can store it in a can and throw it away later when it fills up. Amanda already touched on this a little bit, but from a stormwater perspective, just make sure that you store your yard waste, if you do store it on site during this time, away from the curb or the street where it has a high likelihood of being washed into a storm drain and then making its way into our streams. People don't usually think of yard waste and other organic materials as being a stormwater quality problem, but when they're in our streams and there's excess amounts of that material, when they degrade, it does cause pollution problems and depletes oxygen out of our streams for organisms that live there. Pool season is upon us. I don't have a pool, so I'm not entirely sure. But just make sure that if you do have one, that you're maintaining it properly. And if you do have the need to discharge any pool water,
make sure that it's properly dechlorinated first. And you can do that by letting it sit there for at least 10 days, if not more. That would be better. And you can also confirm that it's dechlorinated by using a test kit. In the interest of time, I'll just say for paint and pet waste, make sure that it goes in the trash as opposed to other locations, and wash your cars, if you do so at home, in the grass instead of on your driveway or other surfaces that will make its way into the street. So while there are challenges, there are some opportunities right now. So if you do have extra time during stay at home, then I would encourage you to go outside. And if you haven't done so before, learn about how runoff travels in your yard. So where does the water go? Where are the storm drains in your neighborhood? When you walk around and see those storm drains, when you get out and about, see if they're free and clear of debris. If they do have some debris or they look clogged, contact your local municipality. They would probably have someone come out and clean it before the next rain event to help prevent flooding and other issues in the street. There's also some more green ways that you can improve stormwater treatment on your property that you can kind of learn more about right now and start to think about doing on your property. So rerouting downspouts so that they outlet into a grassy area instead of onto your driveway and the pavement where it can easily get into the street is a really cost-effective option for improving stormwater management. Rainwater harvesting with a 50-gallon rain barrel or a larger cistern is a great option if you have a garden or landscaping that needs watering regularly. Rain gardens are a bowl-like mulch depression that captures and cleans and treats stormwater runoff. They do require a little bit more resources up front. I know that we said, low, no-cost options, but I will talk about some ways you might be able to offset those costs in the next slides. And they do have really great benefit in the long run for stormwater, and the maintenance and upkeep over time are pretty similar to that of a regular mulch bed. So that's a positive. Native plants are also another great way if you're just thinking, I'd like to start a little garden and spruce up my yard. Native plants have deeper root systems that make them better for filtering out pollution from stormwater, and they're also very good for stabilizing your property to combat erosion, and they also require a lot less maintenance because they are, meant for our environment. After you've explored the runoff on your property and you've learned some new tricks and tips about improving stormwater and treating it and things like that, you might want to consider putting together an improvement plan. Some questions you might want to consider while you're doing that. Do you have extra money in your budget for improvements? And if so, how much? As I mentioned, some of these projects do require a little bit more resources, but in the City of Raleigh and in some of the other municipalities, we do have programs that will help to offset the funding challenges of those projects. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, but it's not necessarily, something that you wouldn't be able to do even if you don't have the full funds available on your own. Do you have space on your property for these types of projects? So do you have a downspout or other way to direct stormwater runoff from your roof or your driveway into an area where you'd want to put a device? Usually we're trying to capture the stormwater from those hard surfaces because that's what generates the pollutant load in our streams. So that's something to consider. Depending on the type of project, so like a rain garden, you might have to consider where sunlight is in your yard, what types of soils you have, if you can avoid utilities and trees and things like that in order to put it in. And if you're interested in a rain barrel or a cistern, you'd want to consider, do you have a use for that water? That's a very important question. For materials, if you're looking to purchase items right now, just be really careful and cautious. If you want to visit a store in person, I would really suggest calling ahead of time and seeing if they have curbside or no contact pickup. And of course, the best option right now is to stay home, but definitely call ahead if you do want to go in person. As for the when for your projects, it often takes time for our homeowners that we work with to implement these projects. There's a lot of things you got to get in place, budget, funding, figuring out, if you're working with a contractor who you want to work with, and getting all your ducks in a row before implementing the project. So it's really okay if you don't break ground right now. Even just thinking about making these improvements is a really great stride for a lot of people. So don't get too caught up in that feeling of needing to be like productive and perfect and awesome at this exact moment. It takes time to make some of these changes. If you have kids, this is really, great time for an educational opportunity. So you can take them outside with you when you do those walks around your neighborhood to figure out about where the rainwater flows and things like that. There's a lot of really great online resources, lesson plans, activities. I'd be happy to share those with folks if they're interested. And depending on your child's age, they might even be able to help you with doing research and putting this implementation plan together. And that would be a really great opportunity to learn for them as well. As I mentioned, some municipalities and counties do have funding programs for some of those more costly stormwater improvement projects. So Raleigh Rainwater Boards is that program for the City of Raleigh and folks that own property in our city limits. Our staff is still working and managing this program right now. They're not doing on-site consultations, but they are available if you want to call or email with questions and you want to talk through your specific project idea. Because it did mention the different levels of funding, this is just a really quick map to show kind of where that breakdown is within the city limits, and then some examples of types of projects that the program has funded before. And that's the end of our formal presentation. Before we go into questions, I did want to let everyone know that in lieu of a formal Earth Day event, which we were hoping to do this year for the 50th anniversary, that the city has created a very great virtual resources page. So I would really encourage you to check that out to learn how you can celebrate, take action, and learn how to help the planet while you stay inside right now. So thanks.
Thank you very much. So much. This was fantastic. Between the three of you, you're going to save the world. At least I think so. I mean, if somebody could go through and implement even just a handful of these, I mean, it would be great improvements to the environment, but also I think quality of life for them and their neighbors, and even the city, right? If you live in a more urban area, if you live within the city of Raleigh, even, like, you can make life better for you and for everyone around you and for the planet. Like, that's great. So we've got a little bit of time for questions left. This is great. We had a lot of questions come in to the chat box. If you've got more questions you're thinking about, post those there in the chat, everybody. We're moderating those and we'll pose those to our guests in as much time as we have. So the questions kind of rolled through as so far as each of you were presenting. So Nicole, I think we'll go back to your chat and I'll start posing some questions for you. Sound good?
Sounds great.
So let's see here. Katie was asking about fluctuations like cooling when you get home using less energy than sustaining a temperature throughout the day. In fact, there were several questions and comments that came through about these sort of trade-offs of, you know, is it using more energy to try to warm my house up from, or cool it down rather, from 80 to 75 than just keeping it 75 all day?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And yes, there is a little bit of a trade-off, but it's similar to like idling your car versus stopping and starting. So you're going to use less energy to cool your house, especially so if you go out and you close all the blinds and shades, like I mentioned before, and you kind of try and prevent that heat from getting in. You're also not opening the doors and letting heat in your house. And this is also where weatherization can help you. It can help prevent cool air from escaping or warm air in the winter. So it allows the temperature to be maintained a little bit better during the day. So there will be a trade-off in that period of time when you come home and the device kicks on and goes into higher gear. But over the course of that 8 hours, you would have used more energy to keep it at temperature.
Kim was asking, how often should filters be changed?
So it depends on the system and the filter. So mine are recommended to be changed every 1 to 3 months. A friend of mine has a more industrial filter or a higher level filter, and he can change his annually. So I would recommend reading the label on your filter and also checking to see which filter should be used with your particular AC or heat pump device.
Cool. CL Robinson asks, should we still use cold water to wash our clothes because of COVID-19? Should probably jump in and say, do what the WHO and CDC tell you to do when it comes to that.
100%. I do know that they have said that water temperature is not as important as the duration of hand washing. So my personal assumption is that as long as it's running through a full cycle, you're using a detergent that's going to break down anything and rinse it away. Hopefully you should be okay. But if it does make you uncomfortable, use warm water. I mean, we're not trying to ask people to take on any more risk than they're comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jason was saying that the temperature differs this year to last year because of climate change. But I mean, in 50 years, maybe we've seen 1 degree average temperature increase, I think, is the numbers for North Carolina or thereabouts. But that is a good question. If you're looking at your home energy use, especially in a state like North Carolina, where we have really variable weather one day to the next, one season to the next, and even year over year, how can people sort of think about making these home energy changes to their thermostats?
I mean, that is a good question. And no month is the same as the month preceding it, and no month is the same as the month in the previous or the following year. And our patterns over time are that we are getting warmer. And so we need to respond to that, both to keep ourselves comfortable and to maintain our normal lives. But really, the way we see it on a year-to-year basis, yes, we're having more hot days in a month, but in our typical climate, year to year so far isn't changing as drastically as you mentioned. So we've seen 1 degree of warming, just as it expresses itself as more warm days in May. Apologies, they're doing some work outside of my house right now. So it is the best comparison you'll have for the data. So if you're looking at trying to make that change from last May to this May, unless you want to do that more research and find out what was the period that had the most similar temperature that you can access. So it might have been last November had the most similar temperature to this April. But that is not going to be on your electric bill. So you're going to have to dig a little deeper.
The next question looks like it's for Amanda.
All right, hit me.
Shelly's asking, what is the status of the City of Raleigh Block Leader Program? Shelly says that they were involved for 20 years, but haven't heard anything real recently.
That's a really great question. So we are looking to kind of, once everything goes back to normal, our focus will be, we want to do more with volunteers, and that is our volunteer program for our department. So we're going to be updating our website with more information and hope to make it a more robust program, but changes are coming to that, and we will have that updated. We've definitely been talking about bringing that program back. So it kind of dropped off there for a little bit. It was something that was being run by a previous employee for our department, so we're kind of switching hands with it, but we're going to make sure that we bring it back.
Okay, cool. Stay tuned. Shelly also asked that we're seeing plastic recycling vendors who are not able or willing to receive and process plastics as they used to a year or so ago. Is City of Raleigh seeing any issues like that?
We luckily have not. So we have not had to make any changes to our recycling program when it comes to plastics because of that. We're in a good position that the sorting facility and manufacturer that we use is still able to take in those plastics. So I know other municipalities might not be as lucky, but here in Raleigh, we're still able to take all those plastics. And then also kind of a plug for that, when it comes to things like a plastic bottle, we want caps on. So they don't have to be separated in the cart. Go ahead and put that cap right back on the bottle, recycle the whole thing.
That actually was somebody else's question.
Well, there we go.
Plastic caps on. But what about like metal caps on glass bottles?
Yes, so we could put, if it has kind of a rule of thumb, if it has a cap that could be screwed back on or tightened back on, go ahead and put it on there. Loose caps are tricky in the cart. They'll kind of get away from us in the sorting process. But even if it's a mixed material, so that metal lid on your glass jar, go ahead and screw it back on there, toss the whole thing
Nice and easy.
in.
What about plastic clamshells?
Yes, so clear plastic clamshells, those number one plastics, typically like a blueberry or strawberry container, we want those. Those were a new addition for our program.
Oh, great. Some other folks are asking about plastics like that too, and about their different municipalities. Like we've got viewers, somebody identified they were watching from near Charlotte as well. So
Okay.
probably check your local.
Yeah, I highly recommend whatever municipality you're in, just make sure you're double checking that website to make sure that those items are accepted there as well.
Are any changes expected in general to the carts? Kelly is saying they have 3 of the big curbside bins, but would also be great if recycling pickup went to weekly.
So we've heard that. So we've gotten that comment a lot from residents. As of right now, operationally, we're not able to do it. We just don't have enough resources. But hopefully, in the future, it'll be something that's more that's easier for us to do. So we can start maybe considering weekly collection for that.
One more data point for you, I guess.
Yes.
See, we've got a question from Heather. Just curious as to why washed plastic takeout containers can't be recycled.
So typically, if it's a clear plastic, if it's kind of that hinged takeout container and it's a number one plastic, we're able to take it. A lot of times we notice that even though it looks and feels like plastic, it could be styrofoam. So takeout containers get tricky. So if it's that number 6 plastic, it's going to look and feel like plastic, but it's actually styrofoam. So we can't make that blanket statement of allowing all takeout containers. It has to be a specific, like that clear plastic hinge. So that's probably where her question's coming from. If we can't just say that we're accepting all of them, it has to be a specific type.
And Raven is asking, curious about Raleigh offering citywide composting.
So that's also something that we've considered. So we have our own yard waste center that we operate, and we've looked into possibly getting that graded to start taking organic waste. That's kind of a ways away for us, but it's definitely an idea that's on the table. And the goal would be to start having that organic material and food waste just mixed in with the yard waste. So we would just have to make one collection and bring it all to the yard waste center. So hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next few years, we'll be able to start looking into that idea and having that as a program that takes off.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Katie is asking about composting too. Is freezing your compost, keeping it in the freezer, or the special containers like countertop composting bins? Is one of those better for just short-term storage?
Either works. So we just recommend freezing food scraps because people will sometimes complain about maybe there could be an odor depending on what you're putting in that compost bin, and people just don't want it sitting out. Or some people only tend to their compost bin maybe like once a week. So if you're planning on keeping those food scraps just sitting, we would recommend freezing them. But if it's something that you're going to walk outside and do every day, then definitely a countertop container would be perfect.
I'll say I have a compost bin right outside my kitchen.
Awesome.
And we've been running it and adding stuff to it, yard waste and our food scraps from the kitchen for a couple of years now, 3 years, I think. And we went and dug out a whole wheelbarrow full of delicious, wonderful soil this year.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
I probably shouldn't have been so excited about dirt, but I was very excited about my fresh dirt.
That's something worth getting hyped up about. I appreciate that.
All right. Casey wants to know, will the slides be available for sharing? There's always somebody in every meeting wants to know if we're going to get the slides. Casey, I can tell you that you can always come back to this YouTube link and watch this video anytime, as long as there is a Museum of Natural Sciences and a YouTube. This video will be here for you to come back and watch. And I don't know if the websites that you each listed would be great resources. Or I don't know if you wanted to share slides somewhere or not. Emily is asking for Amy, what stormwater projects would you recommend for renters?
So for renters, it kind of depends, I would say, on whether you're renting a home or an apartment. I live in an apartment right now, so I really can't do very many of these practices, unfortunately, myself. If you rent a home, I would say a rain barrel is a great start, just because that's something that's, again, not too much of a cost, and also you can take it with you when you leave. It's easy to take apart and take it with you, and not leave for your landowner. But renting is a little bit more tough.
I guess you do what you can where you can.
Exactly.
Okay, Daniela is asking me, I want to get this one right. Daniela says sustainability should be taught in schools with different ways of thinking. We can build the world we need. Does City of Raleigh offer classes online?
I know that, again, that virtual resources webpage for Earth Day that I shared at the end of my presentation, I know that has a lot of resources. I know we have a lot of my coworkers that are coming up with virtual training videos and things like that. So they are in the works. Hopefully, this whole stay at home is, and sooner rather than later, but we really don't know right now. So we are trying to get those materials together for everyone.
Yeah, I know for kids, our Parks Department is putting a lot of activities and things online, and doing a lot of, I think they're calling it play in place activities there. In terms of other sustainability classes, we're putting up these on our website and linking to other resources as well for people on that Earth Day page.
I will add, for Stormwater partnership called Clean Water Education Partnership, and they have a website that right now has a lot of really great resources for virtual learning about watersheds and waterways and water quality.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, Shelly has a question, and I've heard about this program too. I think it was in the news not too long ago, the textile recycling program.
Yes, so we are still, we're in the third and final year of that pilot program. So we're partnering with a private company, Simple Recycling. They follow our recycling routes, and we just ask that our residents put out those orange bags that are provided by the company on their regularly scheduled recycling day. So whenever residents put out that blue cart, the orange bag can go right next to it. And then Simple Recycling, they run their own trucks. So they'll pick up those materials, sort them, and recycle them. So we're coming to the end of our pilot, and so we're just going to make the decision about what our next steps will be. But yes, that program is still going on.
Amazing stuff. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. Thanks for doing this.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, thanks to the City of Raleigh for all the great stuff they're doing to try to make the world a better place with Nicole, Amanda, and Annie. Again, thanks to everybody for tuning in to the broadcast, posting your questions and your comments. This video will remain at this same link. So when we're done here with the live stream, you can come back later and watch the video all over again. If you started late, go back to the beginning. All this great information is going to be here. Check out the City of Raleigh's websites that you see listed to learn more information. And I hope that you all stay safe, stay healthy out there in the world. Nicole, Amy, Amanda, again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for doing this and chatting with us in the museum.
Yes, thank you.
Happy Earth Day, everybody.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy Earth Day, everybody. I'll also let everybody know that you can visit naturalsciences.org, the museum's website, to find lots of great science at home activities. From the Science at Home page on our website, you can get do-it-yourself activities, see what our science project of the day is, our science story of the day. You can visit the Moment of Science page within that to see what we're highlighting every single day, something new. If you're excited about Earth Day and excited about making a difference, I want to tell you about a special event we're doing tonight. At 6:30 here on the museum's YouTube channel, we're going to be doing an Earth Day streamathon. I've lined up a bunch of amazing scientists and educators who are going to be jumping onto YouTube, dropping in to share their science research, their passion for the planet with us. And we've got guests from all disciplines, astronomy to zoology, who are going to be joining me to chat about Earth, what makes it special, and all of the cool biodiversity and conservation projects that are going on locally here in North Carolina and around the world. We're going to have a great time. Who knows how long it's going to last, because there's so many experts who are going to be tuning in. It starts at 6:30 tonight. You can find more details at naturalsciences.org, or hit the museum up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the tag @naturalsciences. Or, of course, you can always like and subscribe below, click the bell to get notified, and then you will know every time the museum is uploading all that great science content that I know you want. Again, special thanks to our guests from the City of Raleigh, and thank you all for tuning in. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.